Hey, what's up, nerds? It's Paul at Radio Free Hammer Hall. Today, I thought we would dig in to the faction pack for Hedonites of Slaanesh. Since I am getting started with this army, I thought it might be fun to start taking a look at it. And, ooh, is that what is going to work for me? Okay. Anywho, so I'm getting started in this army, and I thought be a good time to really go through everything. I've done some of the math on things, so we can talk about that a bit more. I did a video specifically already on just the depravity abilities and how all of that works out. So better than I think a lot of people think it is, especially with the new version of it. So without further ado, I'm going to get into it. If I can get to the next page. Is it going to work? Why are we not working? For some reason, the page is not advancing. This is what happens when you do things live and don't test it first. There we go. Now it's starting to do stuff. Okay. So our battle trait is the excess of depravity. The ability in the faction pack is no longer what it is. We had errata to it, so it's significantly better. So how it works now is at the start of each battle round, which is going to be after the turn order is determined, you decide how many depravity dice your opponent is going to get. Or I'm sorry, temptation dice. I keep calling them depravity dice. So you tempt your opponent with up to 3 dice. And for that, the number of dice that you give to your opponent, you get to give the euphoric keyword for that many units in your army on the table, which we'll get to in a second what that actually does. But those temptation dice can effectively be used for like a pseudo reroll. Your opponent, decides to replace one of their dice, a wound roll, save, ward, or run. When they do that, they have to roll the dice. On a 1 or a 2, that die gets replaced by that value, the 1 or the 2. 3 up, it is replaced with a 6. And when they roll that 2 up, the unit that they're making that roll for then takes D3 mortal damage, which can't be warded. And along with that, you can also use 2 temptation dice to replace 2 of the dice in a charge roll for one of their units. Same deal as before. For this, you can create euphoric units, and that unit gets crit 2 hits, and also can run and still shoot and charge that turn. So overall, pretty selective, can be kind of powerful, can punish your opponent because you're actually tempting them with this now, as opposed to simply letting them possibly take damage, which is how it used to work. So it fluffs their roll as well as giving them some mortal damage. All right, let's look at our battle formations. The Depraved Carnival. This is for your Sybarite infantry. That is going to be your Bliss Barb Archers, your Twin Souls, and your Painbringers. You add 1 to hit rolls while they are damaged or have any models slain in the same turn. Um, I feel like that one's a little bit weak. You don't really want to be taking damage first, because that's going to weaken you before you get that hit roll. I mean, it kind of gives you a little bit more gas on the crackback, because inevitably you're going to have some units that do that, and this is going to kind of manipulate your opponent to not activate against those units first. But overall, I'm not really excited about Depraved Carnival. Seeker Cavalcade. Your Slaanesh cavalry can retreat and still charge, which is real good, and they don't take mortal damage when they do that. I really like that, especially since you get charge bonuses on several of your cavalry units. So that one I think is a really strong one to build around. Euphoric Revelers. This one's for your non-hero Slaanesh demons, and those units can, when they use the rally command, can make 3 additional rolls of d6 to try and heal or bring models back. And then finally, Supreme Sybarites, your non-hero Slaanesh units, add 3 to their control scores while they are within combat range of enemy units. Oh, I'm sorry. When they are within combat range of another one of your heroes. Oh, man. I apologize, guys. My brain is a little fried today, so I'm going to do this anyway and do my best with it. But I apologize if I completely screw stuff up or start fumbling over my words. Trying to do this with a mild migraine, which kind of sucks. But we press on anyway. All right, our heroic traits. 3 as usual for this. Glory Hog, when that hero when you destroy an enemy hero, that unit becomes euphoric for the rest of the battle. Strongest Alone, add 1 to hit and wound rolls for this attacks while it's more than 6 inches from all other friendly units. And then Into the Fray, this unit has strike first when it charges and rolled an 8+. So I think all of these certainly have a place in what you're trying to do. Strongest Alone is really interesting on maybe like a Keeper of Secrets. A lot of your other things, I think, really want to be kind of closer together. Glory Hog is certainly fun, just getting effectively like crit 2 hits and run and charge and run and shoot on a unit, rather on your hero. Again, probably best on something like Keeper of Secrets. And then the ability to strike first when you charge on 8+. It's a passive, so it's not in a thing that's preventing you from doing that when you countercharge, which I think is the especially good thing about that. So out of those, like, I'm really not sure which one I would take. I think it's going to be situational and how I want to build that particular list. Artifacts. Got a once per battle, a non-hero unit within 12 inches has to be the target, and you add 1 to the attack's characteristic of the unit's melee weapons for the rest of the turn. That's pretty powerful, especially if that unit is euphoric, so they get crit 2 hits as well. That one is interesting, but it's only a once per battle. Next one, the Threatening Voice Box. Am I pronouncing that correctly? I don't think so, but whatever. Anywho, for the rest of the turn, subtract 1 from the attack's characteristic of melee weapons used by enemy units while they are in combat from this unit. You have some units that just do that for free on their war scroll. Then Pendant of Slaanesh. If any damage points were allocated to this unit this turn, you heal 3. That combos really well with the Fane of Slaanesh, because that is doing D3 mortals to one of your heroes in order, or I'm sorry, one of your units in order to get a buff. So this kind of lets you have like a wizard hang back, get that buff from the Fane, which gives them +1 to their casting for the turn, and then you can just heal back whatever damage that they took. Also just good on whatever you're looking to get up in your opponent's face. So, I mean, I think Pendant of Slaanesh is probably going to be what I go with most of the time, just for kind of my play style. After playing Nurgle for a long time, I really value healing and things like that. So, certainly kind of what I am inclined to go with. All of these other two certainly have a place. I think in Slaanesh, your Icon of Infinite Excess is probably your most thematic pick. All right, and then your spell lore. Your unlimited spell targets one of your euphoric units, and it's casting on a 6. Instead of crit 2 hits, it becomes crit mortals, which definitely does quite a bit more damage. And you're also like, that's going to be particularly good against units that have a high armor save, or, conversely with one of your units that has like no rend, or like just rend 1. Overwhelming Acquiescence casts on a 7, add 1 to wound rolls for attacks that target an enemy unit until the start of your next turn. That's an enemy within 18 inches, so that's a pretty long range. Casts on a 7, which is not terrible when you've got the Fane around that can give you +1 to cast. And then Phantasmagoria. Until the start of your next turn, each time the target is picked to use a fight ability, you can pick a friendly unit in combat with the target. That unit can move 2d3 after the fight ability has been resolved, and it can pass through the combat ranges of enemy units and can end the move in combat. So, it lets you maybe move into combat when you blew a charge, or lets you move a unit that charged and get them like to pull something else into combat afterwards. It's interesting. It's tricky. I don't know how often that's going to be useful. Overwhelming Acquiescence, like adding 1 to wound rolls, you do kind of have a lot of stuff wounding on a 3, so that would be definitely very valuable. Especially like if you get Sadistic Spite off and Overwhelming Acquiescence on a euphoric unit, and then just all out attack them, like you're probably going to be on like 2s and 2s or 2s and 3s, and blast a lot of damage in. So this is definitely a very Johnny army. Like you're combining things together and kind of playing to outs a lot, with a lot of mobility. So certainly very valuable there. All right, and then manifestations. We'll go over these later because the only thing we really care about is the actual war scroll. So we will just move on from there. All right, getting into the actual units here. Shalaxi Hellbane. This one's really interesting. Definitely with 6 attacks on 2s, 3s, 2 rend, 3 damage with anti-hero +1 rend. And then 2 more attacks, 3s, 3s, rend 2, 4 damage. This guy's going to hit like a truck or lady. I don't know. I'm not really sure if this is a dude or a chick. The whole army's kind of like that. So I don't know. I'll probably just use our pronouns interchangeably. So looking at special abilities in addition to this, but first of all, check out 14-inch move. This guy really is going to be hustling across the battlefield. 16 health, 4 up save, controlling 5. Supernatural Grace, you're always subtracting 1 from hit rolls for combat attacks that target this unit. So although that like 16 wounds, 4 up save doesn't look like super defensive. You also have the 5-up ward to protect you, but -1 to hit all the time against him is going to be really valuable. It's a wizard 2 as well. Has a spell Refined Senses cast on a 4. For the rest of the turn, add 1 to wound rolls that target or that this unit's. Let me actually read this properly. I apologize. Add 1 to wound rolls for this unit's attacks that target enemy heroes, and add 1 to save rolls for attacks made by this unit that um, heroes target this unit. So very valuable for those like monster heroes, especially. All right. And then once per turn, a reaction for Paramount Hunter. Your opponent declared a charge within 9 inches. If this unit's not in combat, it can immediately move 2d6. It can pass through the combat ranges of enemy units and must end the move within combat of that hero. If it does so, if this unit charged, and that hero's charge ability has no effect. So this is, specifically a hero charging. So if a hero charges within 9 inches, you kind of get a free counter charge before your opponent charges, and you can potentially negate their charge and get Shalaxi in there where your opponent doesn't really want them to be. And then once per battle, you got an excess of violence. Targets one of your non-hero Hedonites of Slaanesh units wholly within 12 inches to be the target. And the unit can use 2 fight abilities, and the second has Strike Last. From playing Slaves to Darkness or seeing Slaves to Darkness, we all know just how powerful that is on like Varangard and Chosen. Being able to hand that out in Slaanesh also is really powerful. I think Shalaxi is like an excellent choice in general. Like hits like a truck, it has a lot of utility and isn't outrageously expensive. So I like it. I think this is going to be one that ends up in my lists a lot. Keeper of Secrets. This is your generic keeper. Same, basically the same attack profile without the +1 Ren versus heroes. And you still have the same 16 health, 4-up save, 5-up ward, and subtract 1 to hit for combat attacks that target you. And then you have the Locus of Slaanesh, friendly Hedonites demon units that started the battle with 3 or more units that have been destroyed can be the target. On a 4-up, you set up a replacement unit with half the number of models from the target unit, rounding up. Wholly within 12, more than 9 from the enemy. So this is your standard, like, bring back demons. Now, personally, I'm not, like, too excited about the demon units in this. Like, this is going to get you your Hellstriders and your Demonettes and your Fiends, I believe, are the main things that you're going to be getting here. So, like, personally, I don't really like those that much. I think a lot of people like Demonettes. They certainly can hit pretty hard when they charge, but they're very glass cannon-y, which I don't really like that much. Okay, once per turn army in any combat phase, you can pick an enemy unit in combat with this unit to be the target. You add 1 to hit rolls for that, pick one of the following. Add 1 to hit rolls, add 1 to save rolls for the target. Or if the target's damaged, they can heal D3. Then you add 1 to the damage characteristic of your elegant Great Blade. So that goes from 2 to 3 damage. So you got to hand over a buff to your opponent in exchange for getting higher damage. I think you're going to use that ability a lot. Handing out like +1 to hit when you're going to wipe something is not that big of a penalty. As well as, heal D3 if it's damaged, like if it has like 1 on it, that's not a big deal. And D3 is really not a lot. compared to just how much the keeper can deal out. Also have a spell. This is another Wizard 2. Cacophonic Choir goes off on a 6. Targets a visible enemy unit. I'm sorry, up to 3 visible enemy units within 6. You roll a die for each target. If the roll exceeds the target's control characteristic, inflict D3 mortal damage on them. Definitely interesting once you get into combat. It's really just kind of doing a bunch of extra damage. All right. And casting on a 6 makes casting it off turn also pretty valuable. Casting on a 7 is still really reasonable. All right. Up next, we have Sinessa, the voice of Slaanesh. 10 wounds, 5 up save. You got an 18-inch ranged attack that can shoot in combat. And then we got our talons, 5 attacks, 3s, rend 2 damage. So not hitting super hard, but the rest of the abilities is really where the magic happens. You're a wizard 1. You become a wizard 2 when you have Dexessa also on the field. Once per turn, you have your Enthralling Splendor. You pick an enemy unit that charged this turn and is in combat with this unit to be the target. You roll a die on a 3-up, subtract 1 from wound rolls for the target's attacks for the rest of the turn. So this is more protecting you by distracting your opponent. And then end of any turn, you pick a visible enemy unit within 18. If the target, pick a visible unit, not just enemy, can be friend or foe. If the target's friendly, you add 5 to the control score. If it is enemy, you subtract 5 from the control score. So really solid there. Then we have our spell, Whispers of Doubt. You pick an visible enemy hero within 18. Add 1 to hit and wound rolls for combat attacks that target the enemy for the rest of the turn. This is really an interesting utility piece. You're a wizard with a pretty solid spell, along with your spell lore. You fly, you have a 5-up ward with a 12-inch move, really kind of hustling around the board. Slaanesh in general, very fast. And that's one of the things that I really like about this army. Modifying a control score by 5 is actually pretty good. So I certainly think that's going to be something that's going to be worthwhile to you. And then also becoming a wizard 2 if you have Dexessa on the battlefield. And this is not expensive. Sinessa and Dexessa are, I believe, 220 and 240. And I forget which is which, but both really solid. All right, up next, Dexessa. Very similar profile with 7 attacks, 3s, rend 2 damage. You do have an ability once per turn in the combat phase. If you charge, you pick up to D3 other friendly non-hero Slaanesh units within 12 and add 1 to the attack's characteristic of the target's melee weapons for the rest of the turn. That's really powerful. You're really fast, so you can charge in with a lot of your army all at once and just kind of hand this out to the units and do a tremendous amount of damage. I think Dexessa is really a powerful one to have in there. End of any turn, Joyous Battle Fury. If any models were slain by this unit's combat attacks, you heal D3 and you get a Battle Fury token, and that lets you add 1 to the attack's characteristic of this unit's Impaling Talons, the melee weapon there, for each Battle Fury token it has until the end of the next turn. One to the attack's characteristic of the Impaling Talons for each Battle Fury token it has until the end of the next turn. So I'm trying to figure out how this actually triggers. If you get the +1 attacks on the turn, like if you destroy something this turn, the Battle Fury tokens don't go away. So she's going to be building up the amount of damage she can do. I don't know with this if any models were slain ends up being conditional to the second part of this, adding 1 to the attack's characteristic. Like, I don't know if it's like, in any turn, you only get that buff if you killed something last turn. I mean, I think either way, it's just going to be pretty consistent that you're able to get that buff. And, this is going to give it like every round basically. So by the end, you'll have, I don't know how many, but I would say 5 or 6 extra attacks is not unreasonable. So just going to keep getting stronger on your attacks. And then this unit can charge even if it retreated, and it doesn't take damage when you retreat. So again, very potent for sure, and just builds up power over the course of the game. And if you have Sinessa on the battlefield, subtract 1 from hit rolls that target this unit. So you're also getting some extra defense so that you can build up those Battle Fury tokens and slowly also be able to do more damage there. Up next, Celeste. This is another one that is very powerful for the points. 4 attacks, Rend 2, 3 damage, then 6 attacks, Rend 1, 2 damage. That's throwing a lot around. 9 health, 4 up save. One thing that we're noticing here in this is that you are absolutely lousy with unique heroes in this army, which means you're really limited on where you can put your enhancements. All right. Deadly Symbiosis. You pick a friendly non-hero Sybarite unit and a friendly non-hero demon unit to be the targets, which can be including Celeste. So Celeste is the demon, so you pair with a Sybarite unit. For the rest of the turn, if one of the targets uses all-out attack or all-out defense, the other can use it for free without spending a command point. So you get a second command duplicating all-out attack or all-out defense without spending a command point. That's really strong. So those are definitely ones that you're going to want to use pretty frequently. Then Vengeful Allegiance. Each time you make an unmodified save roll of a 6, you're going to bounce back mortal damage after the fight ability has been resolved. Again, that's pretty strong. Just kind of bleeding back on the enemy. And this is, it's only on a 6, so you'll probably only do it a couple of times throughout the game. But, it's not terrible. And then we've got a spell. This is another wizard. Cast on a 7. It is Subvert. You pick a visible enemy within 12, and the target can't use commands for the rest of the turn. That one can be really debilitating in certain situations. Really protects you for something like a counter charge, especially. Just denying your opponent something really valuable that turn. Range of 12, relatively short, but I think still quite powerful. All right, your Contorted Epitome. This is another one that is basically like very utility. You have a reaction, your Horrible Fascination. When an opponent declares a retreat ability, when you're in combat with this unit, you inflict an additional D3 mortal damage on the enemy unit. So it makes it scarier to run away. You also have a 4-up ward on this with 5-up save, 7 health. So you are reasonably defensively strong here. And then you've got a passive swallow energy. If you make a successful ward roll for this unit, add 1 to the unit's power level until your next turn. So this is a wizard 1 and can boost up its wizard level. Another one, I don't know how much this is going to end up in my lists, but it's certainly an interesting one. I think in the past it's been a bit more powerful than it is now, but I don't really like to focus on the past on these things. All right. Up next, the Infernal Enrapturous. Another utility piece, really the main thing that we're doing here. Once per turn, it's a reaction. Your opponent declared a spell ability for a wizard within 18 inches, which is a pretty solid range. The casting roll for that spell has to be re-rolled. And if 2 or more dice in the re-rolled casting have the same value, or if one of the dice is a 6, you inflict D3 mortal damage on the target. After the effect of the spell's been resolved. So this is more spell denial. Going to do absolutely nothing against a number of armies in certain situations. So I think because it's so conditional, this is not going to get used that often unless you really know what your opponent is doing, or you have a lot of spells in the meta, which can certainly happen. But I think those things together make this something that's not going to come out too often, which is a shame because this is an awesome model. Awesome model indeed. All right, the Mask. This one has a really cute ability. In the deployment phase, you can set it up a second time on the battlefield, and it just has to be more than 3 inches from all enemy units. The downside here is that, if you don't go first, that's not doing a lot of good for you, and it's just going to let your opponent have a charge target, maybe in some situations just kind of get in the way. Although it can kind of jump over to an enemy objective and grab something, make them have to deal with this before they really do anything. And then your staff of masks, you can either add 3 to the attacks characteristic or heal 3 for this unit in any hero phase. Which, in that first turn, throwing 9 attacks is pretty good, but 5 up save, 4 up ward, 5 health. You're not sticking around that long with this for sure. Okay, and then we've got our Seeker Chariots up next. We're on to the War Machines here. Although I think we might have a couple of more heroes later on in this. The damage that you're doing here is not that exciting. And if this unit charged, you do D3 mortals on a 2+. Yeah, I mean, this is just a big old pass for me. You're not getting charge bonuses other than that. I'm not sure what the price point would have to be on this for me to take it, but it probably isn't what it currently is. Hellflares is another one of your versions of a chariot. Moving 10, so not quite as quick as other things. You do have some axle blades that are going to give you a little bit more damage. You got the Soul Scent, pick up to 3 enemy units that this unit passed across this phase to be the targets. Then you roll D3 for each target on a 2 inflicted amount of damage equal to the roll. And your ward goes to a 5 up for the rest of the turn. And then Threshing Doom, which really should be before Soul Scent, When this unit moves, it can pass through models, the enemy infantry, and pass through the combat ranges of them, but cannot end up in combat. So this is effectively like has basically fly over enemy infantry, which triggers the other ability to do mortal damage to them. Again, not super exciting. I really don't like the chariots in this army. And it's okay because I don't really like the models for the chariots either. All right, another chariot moving 12 inches on this one, throwing a whole heck of a lot of attacks, 20 attacks in total. Um, this is the hero version. That's a wizard one, got a 6-up ward. Your mutilating blades. This is another, impact hits on D3 on a 2+. Then once per turn, you have your Soul Gorgers. You pick up to 3 friendly, non-unique Slaanesh war machines wholly within 12 inches to be the targets, and you add 1 to the attacks characteristic of the target's melee weapons for the rest of the turn. And this also affects companion weapons. That would be great if these had, like, say, damage 2, damage 3, something like that, but that's not the case. And so I think this is, once again, not something that's going to be terribly great. These aren't really like super expensive, but I don't think they're anywhere near a price point that's going to make them worth it. And, my personal taste, again, these are hideous models to me. All right. Your demonettes. This is your standard demon infantry unit. So these guys are super fragile. 6-up save, 6-up ward, 1 health each, move 6, and you add 1 to their attacks characteristic when they charge, and they're doing 2 attacks, 3s, 4s, rend 1 damage. These guys are really just valuable in their weight of dice. If you have your base unit of 10, you charge in, you're going to have 31 attacks on 3s, 4s. Which is going to end up doing a decent amount of damage. These guys are very glass cannon-y. Again, not really my play style, so not really personally rating these too highly. Also, I don't really like the models, which is pretty consistent across all of like the old demons in this army. I really wish they would get resculpts, and hopefully they would be a bit more interesting looking to me. All right, fiends. And I apologize. I have not I don't have the points in front of me at the moment. It'd be great if I also had that open, but I do not right now. All right, so the fiends, once per turn in the combat phase, you pick a unit in combat. On a 4-up, the enemy unit strikes last. Strike last ability is definitely strong. On a 4-up, though, that's not super exciting. Then you've got your disruptive song. You subtract 1 from casting rolls for enemy wizards within 12. And then you're a beastie, so your max control score is 1. It's a unit of 3. Each has 4 attacks, 4s, 3s, rend 1d3 damage with anti-monster plus 1 rend. So they're throwing around a half decent amount of damage. Not super, super exciting. So some interesting utility on this one. I don't think one I'm really going to be taking myself again, but I can definitely see other people doing it, especially if you're building into that whole anti-magic thing that this army can really do. All right, up next, your Seekers of Slaanesh. Again, this is another unit that's throwing a pretty high volume of attacks. And when you make a run roll for this unit on a 1 through 3, it is a value of 4 instead. So again, at a 12-inch move as well, these are going to be really quick moving around the battlefield. I don't know how valuable they're really going to be for combat. This is not throwing around a lot of damage. But these are going to be good for hanging out on the flanks and grabbing objectives, running around, getting battle tactics for you. So I think that's going to be their primary use, but I don't think they're cheap enough to really want to use in that particular role. Glutos. This is your mortal big fatty. So this guy, despite what some of this might look like, he's not super exciting in combat, and all of his melee weapons are companion, so none of your other allegiance abilities or other units are going to hit him at all. Just not doing anything. He is a wizard. He's got a spell, Crippling Famishment. You pick an enemy unit within 18, casting on a 7 until the start of your next turn. You have the target's move characteristic and have them run in charge rolls. So that is definitely pretty strong, especially like combining that with your temptation dice. It kind of takes away some of the bite of some of that, but this guy's real expensive. So I'm still not sure how I feel about it. And then your Grand Gourmand. This is like a cumulative thing. It applies to your Sybarites, rather, which are wholly within 12 inches of this unit. And then it is, as I said before, cumulative. Battle round 1, you add 1 to run and charge rolls. Battle round 2, you add 3 to the unit's control scores. Round 3, add 1 to hit rolls for those units' attacks. And then round 4+, add 1 to the Ren characteristics of melee weapons. So this definitely is, it's escalating in its power over the course of the game. You got 18 wounds, 4 up save, 5 up ward. So he's certainly going to be able to take quite a bit of damage. And then, end of any turn, you pick a friendly Sybarite unit wholly within 12, which includes him, and you heal 6 to the target. So this guy's going to be really hard to shift. So he's cool. He's interesting. He's really just like a really expensive buff piece to hang out in your end of your battlefield. I don't know how much he's worth it. It's a cool model. And I just don't know if he's giving out enough buffs to warrant the amount of points he is. I think he's like 480. Maybe 580 now that I'm thinking about it. Hold on. I think I have a spreadsheet open that has some of this stuff on it. Glutos 470. So he is definitely pricey for what you're getting out of them. Okay, moving right along. And hi to everybody that is currently watching. How's it going? Feel free to send in some messages. I am checking them periodically. Okay, Lord of Hubris. This guy is like fun and interesting. He's also a fantastic model, like just super cool. They really did a great job with all of the new sculpts in this army, particularly the mortal units. Like they're just awesome to me. So a fairly uninteresting profile for attacks. Abilities, you first, I insist. So your opponent gets to decide whether they are going to strike first and have to direct all of their attacks against the Lord of Hubris, or if they get strike last this turn. So this is a guy that's going to have to pair with other things, and he's going to be like, come at me, bro, and let you distract from another unit that went in. Potentially. And then only the best will suffice. You pick a friendly Painbringer or Twin Soul that is in combat and wholly within 12 to be the target. You roll a die on a 3-up for the rest of the turn. Each time a model in that unit is slain by a combat attack, that model gets to attack back. I'm sorry, not attack back, but it on a 4-up inflicts 1 mortal damage after the fight's resolved. This guy's fun. Again, I wish he had some better rules just to kind of make all of that more worthwhile. Lord of Pain. This is another buff piece. The big thing is that he can give your Sybarites +1 to wound for their combat attacks while they're wholly within 12. And each time you make a successful ward roll, he bounces back mortal damage after the fight ability has been resolved. And he has a 5-up ward. So he's certainly going to bounce back some stuff. So interesting. Certainly interesting. I think just kind of not worth it, unfortunately. And again, sucks because he's a really cool model. Sigvald, the Prince of Slaanesh, the Magnificent, the pretty boy of Age of Sigmar. All right. So 6-inch move, 3-up save, 7 health, 4-up ward. So he's going to be pretty hard to shift. Not a ton of health, but a lot of protection in the save and the ward. All right. Powered by Vainglory, if he charged this turn and the unmodified charge was a 6+, you replace his attack's characteristic with the charge roll. So he can end up with a whole lot of attacks. And you strike first if you charged, and ward rolls cannot be made for damage inflicted by his combat attacks. And he's also not really that expensive. I think he's like 220. So certainly well worth it, I think. This is one of my favorite kinds of war scrolls in general, where you just have this like melee combat hero that's kind of quick and can really get work done for an inexpensive price. Okay, Slongor Fiend Bloods. These guys have historically been garbage. Are they still garbage? Kinda. So they're 3 wounds each on a 5-up save. If any damage points were allocated to this unit this turn, this unit can use a normal move ability as if it were your movement phase. And that's in the enemy shooting phase. So when they get shot, they get to move, which against a lot of armies, that's going to do absolutely nothing. It makes it, I guess, it's kind of preventing your opponent from returning fire at you by just like getting them up close. 4 attacks each, 4s, 3s, run 1, 2 damage. Yeah, I mean, I'm still not really impressed by these guys. Not sure how much they're actually going to get used. Certainly not by me, and they are in the Spearhead box. So there's certainly going to be a lot of them floating around. So if you like these, you can probably pick them up for pretty cheap on eBay. Personally, not my taste, though. All right, the Shard Speaker. Another guy hanging out in that Vanguard box. What does she do? She has some abilities that kind of look like they're supposed to be combat-oriented. The real thing here is Wizard 1 and when in your shooting phase, you pick an enemy unit within 8 on a 4-up, you subtract 1 from save rolls for the target until the start of your next turn. Like, that's the thing that's powerful. Like, just taking out your opponent's save rolls, making them weaker. I think this is going to, it's only 8 inches, but, this army is fast. So that's certainly going to be something that is going to happen. And within, not wholly within for the target. So it gives you a lot more range than you might think it does. Miramadesh Painbringers. We're getting into like my favorite stuff now in this army. 3 attacks, 3s, Ren 1 damage, and you add 1 to the Ren characteristic if you are contesting an objective you do not control. These guys are fun. They are relatively inexpensive, and they've got a 3-up save and 2 health each. So they're swinging decently hard. And if you throw additional buffs on them, then they're doing pretty well. And they're great for, this is like one of your units for like clearing off objectives. I think really good for hanging out more in the backfield and clearing objectives more on your end that your opponent is taking over on you. All right, Blissbarb Archers. These guys are real good. 18-inch shots, 2 attacks, 3s, 4s, Ren 1 damage. Excuse me. And you subtract 1 from hit rolls for shooting attacks that target this unit while you've got a homunculus with you. When you make an unmodified save roll of a 1, you remove the homunculus after the attack's been resolved, so you lose that ability if you roll a 1 on your saves against shooting attacks. The big thing with these guys is they can just put a lot of arrows in the air for pretty inexpensive, and if you can give them crit mortals, they're gonna really be spraying a good amount of damage on your opponent. A unit of 10 of these guys putting just 21 shots in the air every turn, giving them crit mortals, that's going to be like 3 or 4 mortals every shooting phase. So real good. Real good. Definitely. They are super fragile, but much like the rest of this army, but you're going to be running around a lot of stuff in front to kind of screen them out and leave them protected and untouched by your opponent as much as possible. Then our Twin Souls, another really cool unit with great models, same kit as the Painbringers. If this unit didn't charge this turn, you subtract 1 from the attacks characteristic of melee weapons for enemy units that target you. Or I'm sorry, not that target them, but are just in combat with you. So even if they're targeting another unit. And then Fiendish Reflexes. If this unit did not charge this turn, you have a 5-up ward on top of your normal 4-up save. So these guys are interesting. This is like tanky. You're going to want to like move these guys up, and it's going to kind of shield your stuff from your opponent while you tempt them in and then get a counter charge on the following turn. So certainly I think these are going to be a staple for me, at least. I like them a lot. Okay. Moving right along. Hellstriders. Unfortunately, these are old derpy models. They are decently good. They're, real cavalry, so to speak. They get +1 damage on the charge, and they are +1 rend against infantry. And if this unit charged this turn, subtract 3 from the control scores of enemy infantry units while they are in combat with this unit. So another one of those control score tricks. Only working against infantry, but against most armies, it's going to be doing decently well for you. And these guys are pretty cheap and can do a lot of damage for how much they've got there. So I think they're a decent value for the package, but I think the Slick Blade Seekers are better. Speaking of Slick Blade Seekers, 3 attacks, 3s, 4s, rend 1 damage, charge +1, and you can reroll charges for this unit. So they're getting in there. And that's all charges, so you can also re-roll your counter charges. Yeah, the big thing with these guys is that they're really good value, and they're quick. They're 12-inch charge, or I'm sorry, 12-inch move, which is the same as your Hellstriders. And then up next, another 12-inch move on your Bliss Barb Seekers. These guys also have bows with a 12-inch shot, so they're similar attack profile to your Bliss Barb Archers. These guys are going to be putting up a unit of 5 of them, is your base. You're going to be putting up 16 attacks versus the 21 attacks that you get out of the regular archers. Their threat range is the same, 12-inch shot and 12-inch move for 24 inches. And then the archers 6-inch move with 18-inch bows. So they are they have the same threat range, but these are a lot quicker, and they're going to be able to stay sticking around the sides, harassing your opponent, and grabbing objectives, grabbing. I think these are really good for grabbing those battle tactics, like take the flanks, take their land. They can still be doing damage to your opponent while they're grabbing those battle tactics. So I think that's really valuable. Get into your opponent's backfield, still be popping some damage at them. And in addition here, you add one to the Ren characteristic of their ranged weapons if you're targeting an enemy unit that's contesting an objective you do not control. So bringing those shots to Ren 2, that's just really good. All right, these are now the endless spells that we have here. The Dreadful Visage. This guy is a horde clearer. You roll 6 dice, 4 up, inflict mortal damage. But if any models are slain by this ability, this target strikes last. That, I think, makes this very interesting. Being able to just get your opponent to strike last. 8 attacks, 3s, 4s, Ren 1 damage. Not really exciting. Moves 8 and flies with a 6-up ward, 6-up save. I think certainly going to this makes me want to take this particular manifestation lore. Sorry, I had to grab a little sip of coffee to keep myself awake over here. This isn't about dealing a tremendous amount of damage. This is really about making your opponent strike last, which is something that I really like. Okay. Mesmerizing Mirror. This one cannot move. And if an enemy unit does not end their move closer to this manifestation than it was at the start of the move, you inflict D3 mortals after the move's been resolved. So you stick it somewhere kind of on the flanks where your opponent doesn't really want to be, and they are and the range is 12 inches, which is decently far. So sticking in a place where they're just going to get triggered D3 mortals, and you're reacting every time an opponent declared a move ability wholly within 12. So this is going to hit every unit. It's not just once per turn. Definitely it has the potential to throw a lot of damage around. Not especially durable, but who cares? The point is to distract the enemy and do some damage to them when they're not coming towards you. And then you can, in any movement phase, pick an enemy unit within 6 inches and inflict D3 mortals and add 1 to hit rolls for the target's attacks for the rest of the turn. Have to target an enemy. I think this would be really interesting if you could target your own units and then sacrifice that D3 to add 1 to hit rolls. But, I think that's what the Feign does anyway. And then the Wheels of Excruciation. You pick up to 3 enemy units that this manifestation passed across. You roll 6 dice. For every roll that is less than the target's save characteristic, you inflict 1 mortal damage on the target. So this is doing more damage when they have a lower save. I don't know. I think this one's a little bit of a dud, but who cares? Your other two, I think, are really solid. All right, and then the Fane of Slaanesh. This is your terrain piece. It is a damned conduit. So you pick a friendly Hedonites of Slaanesh unit wholly within 12 of this terrain feature to be the target. And this is in your hero phase. And the way this is worded, I believe you can just do this more than once. You allocate D3 damage to the target, and ward rolls cannot be made. Then pick one of the following abilities. You add 1 to wound rolls for the target, add 1 to run rolls and charge rolls for the target, or add 1 to casting and unbinding rolls. So this is going to, you're making like a sacrifice to get a buff. You have some wizards that can heal, so doing it to buff your casting is certainly valuable. Add 1 to runs and charges is not bad, but adding 1 to wound is certainly like really powerful, I think. And then there's going to be a decent number of units that can just kind of suck that up and not worry about it too much, and then you can deal out a lot of extra damage. And that is it. We are all through. We're not going to go through Spearhead right now. Overall thoughts on this. This is definitely a Johnny army. It is very tricksy. You're going to be speeding around the board, and speed kills. Movement phase is the most important phase of the game. And so you're really dominating a lot of other armies in the movement phase here. I really like that a lot. You have some tricky combo things. You have a lot of making your opponent strike fast, strike last, making your stuff strike first. So certainly some options there. Well, that is going to be it for now, guys. Hopefully this has been helpful to you, and I will talk to you all later.